Are you tired of being a novice, a noob, a beginner? Well, you're in luck because today's episode, we're going to be talking about how to master anything. This is the Existential Stoic podcast. I'm Randy. That's Danny. What's going on, Danny?
What's up, Randy?
Danny, have you ever been a master of anything?
I was just, it's funny. I was just thinking about this and yes and no. And I hate that response, but I think it's because yes, in a sense, I think of very like with teaching and stuff, I've been doing a long time, very good at it and all. But I also think there is some sense in which, especially if you are really committed to lifelong learning and stuff, you're always kind of in a weird way, always a noob or always never really a master. You know what I mean? Does that make sense at
Oh,
all?
100%. The more you learn, the more you realize you don't know anything. It's
Yeah,
like, yeah,
right.
yeah. But I was the same way with being a vet. Like, I was really, really good at being a vet. I was one of the top producing vets in the area. Like, I could handle anything. Like, you could throw it all at me because I worked in emergency a whole bunch of times. So, like, I was really, really
Right.
good. And yet I would look at these guys who were doing it for like 40, 50 years already, and I was be like, I still have so much to learn. Like, wow.
But I think that is an important part of it, though, is the people who recognize that there's always room for growth. That mastery isn't necessarily about reaching a point and stopping. It's about continuing to progress forward, right? And to continue to develop. So I think that is an important part of it. Yeah.
Mhm. So in this episode, it's a quick
Uh,
fix. So it's not going to be a
it's
long one. We're each going to
not a
share
long fix.
three recommendations for how to master anything. I'm going to get started because I introduced this week. So
Because
the
we keep
first
sliding into
one,
long fixes if we don't watch out.
I know, right? So in this hour
Uh,
long quick fix,
part
um,
one.
yeah, part one, part two next week, same thing, right? The first one that I have is take your time. Everybody wants to become a master immediately. And you see this all over the place. And I mean, I'm guilty as anyone else at wanting to become a master now, but it's just not the way that things work. Like, I remember back when I started learning programming, I was like, how do I learn it? And there was some article somewhere where it was like, don't try and become an expert in 24 hours or in whatever. Figure
Yeah.
10 years. Okay. And like, that's the cool thing because on a long enough timeline, we can learn anything. But we
Yeah.
get frustrated when we're trying to cram it into such a small timeline. So, like, if this is something that you actually want to master, just give yourself more time. Like Steve Martin, when he was learning to play banjo, people asked him, how did you get so good at playing banjo? And he's like, well, it was something that I wanted to do. So I figured if I stuck with it for 40 years, I'd be good. And you know what? It
Eventually.
worked
Yeah.
out.
No, I'm glad you actually mentioned that one because it is true, dude. Like every time I decide on something that I want to do, it's like part of me wants it right now. And I think everybody's like that because I think part of that is just we can imagine our life changed when we finally have that thing. And so we want it, we're impatient. We want it now. But the problem is that that can also destroy you and derail you. So you need to also, part of you also needs to recognize that you just need to slow down, take your time, give yourself a long enough time to actually really get involved with it. And yeah, you can become a master at anything. That's a good one.
Okay, we need to have a short aside right here. I know this is going to be longer
Oh yeah, go
because of
ahead.
this, but
Go ahead.
so like these things that we want them because we imagine they're going to make our lives better, impact our life in a
Yeah.
beneficial way. But oftentimes that's not true. That's just this illusion that we have. Meanwhile, we can have that thing that we want from whatever we're pursuing. We can actually have that right now. Like Marcus Aurelius said it. I've been talking about it all the time, where if you just forget the past, have faith in the future, love
Yeah.
what you have right now, and act right, you can have everything you want without that huge circuitous route of going around to get it. And it's just like, yes, you may not have the finished product right now, but you're in the process, which is the coolest part of it.
It is funny because we always say well, once I get this, then I'll be happy. Once I do that, then I'll be happy. If I only could do that, then I'll be happy. Instead of just realizing that we could cut out those middle things
I
and
know,
maybe
right?
just be happy. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. We are funny. We're funny creatures, I think, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why you guys keep working at it. All right,
Mm-hmm.
I'll do my first one, which I think goes well with yours too, is just make learning and practice a routine. And what I mean by that is do it daily so that you just are someone who does that sort of thing. Like we talked about this thing with both of us with programming. As soon as we started doing it, we do it every day. So then at least I know I'm a programmer. Like even if I can only do like an hour or 20 minutes, I'll do it because at least then you're always engaging with the thing that you want to do, the skill you want to develop. You're never letting it slide. You're giving yourself that long timeline and you're always constantly trying to build on it. And I think that is essential.
That's such a great point. I just listened to this book, Do Epic SH Star T, and that's clearly why it sold so many copies. But
That is
he he
nice.
did
Yeah.
he did make a great point in the book. He's like he said something along the lines of I stopped having these destination type goals, like when I get this degree, when I have that much money, when I do this, because they do two things. One, they make you unhappy now while you're working on it, and
Yeah.
two, once you finish it, you feel like unfulfilled because what are you supposed to do now? So like
Yeah.
it messes up your life while you're getting there, and then it messes your life afterwards. And he said exactly what your recommendation here is of have habits because that's what you really want. Like, yes, the goal would be cool, but you don't want to be like the millionaire programmer. You want to be the person who's programming on a regular basis, making a difference in someone else's life. So why don't you make that a habit and then you can be that every day up until you are that millionaire programmer.
No, you're right too. And even when we do get the goal, we also aren't immediately happy. And then we feel let down about that too. So it's really funny. It's like focusing instead on ourselves is like a way better approach than focusing on letting the outside or externals, define us, or make us happy. But
Mm-hmm.
you can go ahead for your two.
Yeah, that's a great point. So my second one is never give up. Never, ever, ever give up. And you had a great word for this one, perseverance, which I think
Yeah.
means a lot because I've heard it said that like it doesn't take excellence or greatness or a genius or anything to reach our goals. It just takes persistence,
Yeah.
perseverance, never giving up, and maybe a little bit of skill, but that can be developed through getting there. It really just takes sticking to it. And in order to master anything, you're going to have all types of obstacles coming up. And most people quit at the first obstacle, or maybe the second one, or maybe the
Yeah.
third one. But you never know when that thing that you're looking for is right beyond that obstacle. Like there's a great image that I've seen online of some dude, he's like hammering down in a mine and he stops and he's like walking and you see like right beyond where he stopped hammering,
Yeah.
there was all the like gems and everything hidden. And it's just like you never know when you're going to reach that. You just need to keep going.
Yeah, no, I think it's true. And I'll do my one of perseverance now too, just because I think it is important too, or I'll mention that again. But it is important too because we don't know when. And I think the important thing is like really asking yourself, like, if this wasn't a part of my life, would I regret it? And if the answer is yes, then just stick with it. And it's like because the reality is too, like, we talked about 100 times, like, whenever you start something, a new project and stuff, it's so fun in the beginning, but it's always going to get hard because you're going to get stuck. You're going to encounter obstacles, burdens, struggles, suffering. Life's going to get in the way sometimes. You're going to have to go back, forth sometimes. Like it will get hard at times, and you need to have that like that character, that habit, perseverance built into you already, so that you like are able to check yourself and keep going and recognize that these are just bumps. These are just something kind of along the way, but you'll be able to kind of move beyond this at some point. And if you stick with it, you're right. I mean, like I think we forget all the time, like we look at people like that are successful and we think they're magical or special, but the reality is it's all people. Anyone can do anything they want if they just really commit themselves. It might take a big commitment, but it's totally possible. And I think, it's yeah.
I love I love reading biographies of very successful people because you get to see that they are just people. They struggle with everything that we struggle with. They have all types of problems all over the board. You like as soon as you start reading biographies, you stop idolizing them because you realize that like all these things that we idolize them for, it's like yes, they have that, but still they have all these problems all over the place.
But it's like everything else. It's like a caricature. It's like when we like a character in a movie and we associate the actor with that person, but the actor's not that person. You know what I mean? Like it's like, but we make these characters up and we pretend they're the real person, but that's not them. I think that's why, like, you already mentioned it, but Marcus Aurelius' Meditations is a great example of that because like the dude was like the top. And like his meditation shows that he struggled with all the same crap all of us struggle with every day. So none of the power, money, none of that actually changed any of those problems, which I really like that though, because it's like we all have a chance, and but we
Hmm.
all have to put work in. That's really, where it comes to.
Hmm.
So my second one goes really nicely with that too, which is create, and I think this is really important, create a development plan with intermediary goals and objectives so you can like gauge your progress. And I think this is really crucial. I know like we started the coding boot camp and that was really helpful for me to start to see like progress and have you know, learning that way is always helpful because you have assignments and stuff. You have like ways to gauge how you're doing. Because it is hard, yes, I can learn on my own, but it's always hard to know which direction you're going, to know if am I spending too much time on something, whatever. It's helpful to have, a plan. So even if you're not taking like a course, you can very much set up a very effective plan yourself and goal and really, outline it. It doesn't have to be perfect at first, but at least give yourself okay, in 6 months' time, I will have at least done this every day for an hour. That's a great start, right? In
Hmm.
a year's time, I'll be able to, I don't know, play this song on the guitar, whatever it happens to be. Make yourself goals and objectives so you have a way to measure your success and watch how you probably meet them way before the time frame that you give yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point because it keeps you on track. Like it's so easy to get lost in the middle because in the beginning, there's like so much stuff to do. And in the end, you know where the goal is, but like the middle, oftentimes it'll just be like wishy-washy. And so breaking it down, like you mentioned, is a really helpful skill. Yeah. So that brings me to my last one for how to master anything. And this one nobody likes at all, but it's probably one of the most important things. Make mistakes because, yeah, mistakes are part of the learning process. And as a matter of fact, they're one of the most valuable parts of the learning process because they hurt. And that hurt actually like makes us remember stuff and learn stuff.
It does,
And
yeah.
yeah, and like Michael Jordan had that commercial where he's like, the only reason I'm successful as I am is because of all the mistakes that I've made. And there's a saying that most masters have made more mistakes than beginners have even attempted. And it's just that's really what it takes to get where you want to be is to make as many non-life threatening mistakes as you can. And then the second part that's very important is learn from them because
Yeah.
it's one thing to make a mistake, but it's another thing to make a mistake and then not learn from it because then you're just doomed to repeat that mistake, you know?
Well, yeah, then
So,
you're just gonna do the same thing over and over again, right?
mhm,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm gonna do my last one kind of in response to you because it's very similar, but I had approach each obstacle as a learning experience. But no, I think you're right because I think that the thing you're pointing at that is really important. I think I was trying to capture with this too is that the more time you spend with something, the more you start to develop. Once you get past the new stage, you actually start to learn something. Then you really start to see the possibilities. You know how much you don't know, but then your mistakes become super valuable because then they, like you said, they're learning experiences that also burn into your memory. I
Mhm.
know when I made when I was working on projects myself for programming and I made a mistake, I never forget how to solve those now. Because I figured it out on my own. I worked through it, read the documentation, found resources, whatever. But the point is you're actually you're making an intentional choice, you're putting in the effort to solve your own problem. And that is the greatest reward because you proved to yourself that you could do it. And so therefore you proved to yourself that you can be a master. I mean, that's basically it.
Mhm. And also having the courage to own up to your mistakes
Oh yeah,
because
that's good too.
sometimes that can be brutal. There were a couple times working in veterinary medicine where I made mistakes that weren't easy to own up to, but it was like part of my character where I said that this is something that I need to do because this is who I am as a person. And even though it wasn't easy, like I respected myself for doing it as opposed to because I could have shirked it. I could have lied or passed it off or something like that. But like I respected myself more because I had the courage to face it even though it was uncomfortable in the moment.
No, I think that's a great point too. And only when you do admit it and own up to it can you actually face it and treat it as a learning experience. Because if you deny it, sure, you'll never learn from it. And I think that that's also, yeah, it's a really good point. Yeah.
Hmm. So Did we both do our three? We both did our
Yeah,
three.
we're
So
good.
that's
We're good.
it.
Yeah, we're good.
That's it. Now everybody can be a master. It doesn't take 10 years. As a matter
Yes.
of fact, it just took like 12 minutes. So perfect. But I think
Something.
time is an important concept of like how to master anything. There's that 10,000 hour rule or whatever it is, where like if you give enough time for it, it'll happen. Stop being impatient. You have the time. You're gonna be, I mean, unless if you don't die before then, you have the time. What else are you gonna do with it? Scroll through Instagram or like watch brain
Yeah.
deadening TV?
Do you know what I like to with the time thing too is like rather than even thinking about the time, I just focus on doing it every day. And then whenever I have thoughts about that I'm not doing better, I just make force myself to think about where am I now in relation to when I started. And I immediately see that I've grown so much and it just affirms that it's working. And so you just keep going, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That is a great point. And that, in a nutshell, is how to master anything. This is the
Boom.
Existential Stoic podcast. Make sure to check us out on all the podcasting services. Also, you can watch us on YouTube, where you can like,
Boom.
share, subscribe, all those things. I'm Randy. That's Danny. I'll see you later, Danny.
Later, Randy.